Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've recorded meetings and conventions here in Southern California since 1998. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994, and I got sober in a small town called Santa Maria. I moved to Los Angeles when I had 5 years sober and started recording meetings shortly after I got here. In 2013, I started recording conventions. So please enjoy the channel. Please like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. Just click right down there. Thank you.
Now our main speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Cubby from LA.
Cubby Selby, alcoholic. You can tell from my accent I was born in LA. Now, I really don't want you to laugh at me. However, my case is different. Hey man, be cool. Huh? I've listened to a lot of people speak in AA, and my case is different because I never drank in high school and I never drank in college, and I had absolutely no problem with that. Because I never went to high school and I never went to college. I'm a self-made drunk. Gee, do I love alcohol. I adore it. I just want to mention something to people who are new or fairly new. Something that I saw many years before I realized. It said the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. However, it doesn't say you have to be aware of it. Now, I realize now that I must have had a desire to stop drinking because somebody I'd never seen before in my life took me to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous on the 29th of March in 1969, and I've been sober ever since. Now, when at that first meeting, I knew alcohol was not a problem. I was not an alcoholic, so I guess I caught it from you guys. But I was not aware of having a desire to stop drinking. That's one of the most difficult things, I believe, for us to understand and accept, is that this is the kind of disease that denies it exists, and you have to be recovering from it before you really know that you have it. So it makes it very difficult to treat. However, we can't lose. You see, we're not playing with a straight deck. I believe that life is stacked in our favor because the disease is so vicious that eventually it will clobber us into submission and we'll give up for one brief part of a second, and that's all it takes. So I guess that's more or less what happened to me. I drank myself to death. I had no resistance to the recovery when I was taken to a meeting. And now I realize that I'm an alcoholic and that I have a disease and that I'm totally bananas. But I've learned to live with it. I mean, it's an incurable disease. I better learn how to live with it, yeah, because I'm not going to cure it. And I think that's one of the traps I fell into in sobriety. I was thinking that somehow I could cure the illness, not that I could drink again, but that I would never say another angry word. I would never be out of balance. I would stop chasing people in my automobile up on the sidewalk. Well, anyway, all illusions must go eventually, right? All illusions. And the grand illusion of alcohol is so fantastic. See, one of the reasons I love alcohol is because I no longer want anything from it. If you want something from anything or anyone, you're attached and there's pain in the relationship. And just check that out with your, quote, relationship and see if that isn't true. But I no longer want anything from alcohol. So I'm just free to love it and to see what it did for me. I believe the greatest blessing in my life is my disease. I absolutely adore and love alcoholism. And I am delighted that somewhere, somehow, in some way, I decided to be a hopeless, raging, maniacal, bestial drunk because it's the greatest blessing that I've ever had. See, I don't think it's a coincidence that the word spirit means God and it means booze. Because if you're anything like me, you infidel. If you're anything like me, man, drinking was a spiritual experience. You know, because I was always a shattered, alienated, fractured, hopeless, screaming individual. I was like a scream looking for a mouth. And you find that mouth, and there's a New York cop standing in front of you. Oh well. You go on a silent retreat for a while. But I was always consumed by my feelings, and I never understood the process of it. But I could never look at my feelings and say, you know, Cubby, you're disappointed. Cubby, you're afraid. Cubby, you're heartbroken. Cubby, you're sad. I couldn't say that. I couldn't take an honest look at what was happening within me. So I just had to cover everything up with rage and an insatiable self-pity. And I finally realized I had to let go of that because one of the problems with success is that nobody feels sorry for a successful man. You know? So how can you maintain success if you have an insatiable need to feel sorry for yourself? It's kind of a conflict in terms, isn't it? So I have to cut that stuff loose. But I was always alienated. I was always overwhelmed with shame and guilt. And I just couldn't live in my own skin. There was just something always chewing away at me. I just couldn't stand anything. Christ almighty. I couldn't find a way to live in this world that was hostile and antithetical to everything I dreamed of or believed in or hoped for. But I take a drink. Oh, praise God. I take a drink and the angels sing. Oh. Oh. Because when I take a drink, man, all those tortured, screaming, fractured parts are covered. Man, they chill out. And they float around like the most exquisite butterflies and snowflakes. Oh, and instead of the wailing self-pity of a banshee, it's nightingales and mockingbirds. Oh, man, and I sit there, or I lay there, and all these things, they just so sweetly and tenderly and lyrically come together. I become a holy man. Oh, I'm one whole, solid, unified being. And I have a sense of peace that I never knew existed. And I'm no longer inadequate. As a matter of fact, I realize that I have every reason to be smugly superior to you yahoos. Yeah? Fear? Come on, man, I eat a cop for breakfast. Who's that? It's, you know, the grand illusion takes over. That same world, hey, Mango Magaba, shine it on. Oh, but unfortunately, I have this disease called alcoholism, and I have a physical allergy to alcohol, so I take a drink, and it sets off the phenomenon of craving. So in effect, what happens, I take a drink, and then the drink takes a drink, and then the drink takes Cubby. And we don't know where we're going to go or where we're going to end up. And I couldn't see that I was powerless over alcohol. And it's true that people would object to my behavior because I try and kill them. And I had to accept the fact that being a blackout drinker, I have no idea what I might do. I mean, I might kill you, but that's the chance I have to take, you see? I have always had such an intense need to drink. When I was a kid, I used to black out before the first drink. When I was 16, I went to sea. I went when I was 15. I left home. I went to sea, and I was on a freighter at the beachhead in Livorno. I think it was D-Day +3. And there was a lot of activity on the beach. You know. Front line was a couple of miles away. And I suddenly came to on the beach in a tent with two medics holding me down and an army captain bending over me and saying, "Does this happen very often?" Now, I had no idea what he's talking about, but I said no. You know, I denied it. No, I've come out of blackouts in all kinds of places, all kinds of situations. But the last thing I remember to this day was standing on the deck with a shipmate, and that's it. So I guess we went down the gangway, found something to drink somewhere, and I got drunk and blacked out. I have no memory. My need to drink was just overwhelming and extremely intense. And I ended up in the hospital. I spent more than 3 years in bed. They said I couldn't live more than 2 months. I went in the hospital when I was 18. Now, this is the thing. Oh, what a disease. You see, if I can believe the lies and the illusion of alcoholism, it means I have an infinite ability to experience anything. Because the stuff that I believe to protect my right to drink is really remarkable. I was dying. I had TB. I was dying. I had no lungs. So they got me back to this country. I was in the hospital, and I sat in bed for months. I couldn't move. Then they gave me an experimental drug that kept me alive. And as soon as I was able to move, I got some clothes somewhere. I put them over my pajamas. I sneaked out of the hospital, climbed a 10-foot fence, chain link fence, got on a bus, went to a liquor store, came back over the fence, and so forth. And I didn't see where that was as abnormal. It made perfect sense to me. You know? So before I got out of the hospital, they cut out 10 ribs, they collapsed a lung, cut a piece out of the other one, and I was blind, deaf, paralyzed. I mean, it was a mess, man. You know, and then things started to get bad. I mean, it was just really, really dreadful. But I have a bug that I really want to talk about. I really want to talk about some of the results of this thing. Now, I've been given what I consider the 5 most important gifts of my life here, and that is the gift of sobriety, the gift of recovery, the gift of prayer, the gift of love, and the gift of my own personal relationship with this living power that created me. Now, I was given that gift of sobriety that first night. When I say I was given the gift, I don't mean I was given something here that I did not have when I got here, because I know absolutely from my experience with and in this program that I was given everything there is at the day of creation. But because I have chosen to believe a belief system of lies, I'm unaware of having what I'm desperately trying to find. But this process we have here of uncovering the lie, discarding the lie, and discovering the truth makes it possible for these gifts to be revealed to me in whatever way is necessary for me to utilize them one day at a time for the rest of my life. So I was given that gift of sobriety that first night. 30 days later, I was stark raving sober, and I asked for help at an AA meeting, and I was given the gift of recovery. Now, I didn't understand a lot of this stuff until many years later. Of course, everything is in retrospect. But I realize now that the reason I got the answer was instantly and automatically there is because the answer is in the asking. See, I cannot have a problem without already having the answer. It's a spiritual impossibility to have a problem without already having the answer. But in between my awareness and the answer is this belief system. And it's just lies. I taught myself what is true is false and what is false is true. So by the time it gets up, it's filtered through this system of lies, so I can't recognize it. Perception at best is faulty, but by the time it gets through that process, it's unreliable. But, so I already have what it is I'm looking for. But when I come up to you and say, help me, tell me what to do, I've given up, I've surrendered. So the answer's available, it's right there, boom, boom. And then you share with me what you did at that point in your sobriety, and then I recognize the answer in whatever way I need to. So I was given the gift of recovery. And then I was given the gift of prayer with the 7th step. And I believe the gift of prayer is the most precious thing we're given by this power that created this and us and the whole thing. And I don't want to get into all that. Anyway, in our book it says, many of us may have had spiritual beliefs, but now we find we are starting to have a spiritual experience, and that comes after the fifth step. And a belief is a good place to start from, but without the experience, it's totally useless and worthless. I can believe anything I want about alcohol, but until I experience the wonders it does for me and the horrors it does to me, what do I really know about it? I don't really know anything. See, I can have any belief I want, but without the action, I don't have the experience. Without the experience, it's not my reality. So I have a belief, I take the action, have the experience, it becomes my reality. And then it's integrated into my life, and then it's always available to me. Always available to me. That's why this process we have here is so precious, because we're allowed to find our own answer from our own experience from within ourselves, and not something imposed upon us that I have to try and remember. And who can remember when you're in the midst of the problem? And it just better be there or not. And of course, one of our promises after the ninth step is that we'll intuitively know the answer to the problems that baffled us in the past. And I have to rely on it, because if I have to rely on this tougher luck of Joe, I'm out to lunch, as usual. And I believe that the most I can ask for with this thing called prayer is to receive what is already given, to accept what is already there, because I know from my direct experience in prayer, as the prayer, where there's no longer a cubby, as the prayer, that there's nothing to get, there's only everything to give. And AA, for me, is the perfect place to give everything away, because it's only through the process of giving it to you that I'm aware I have it in the first place. We all have this experience on our first 12-step call. And I got sober making 12-step calls. 24 years ago, there used to be a lot of 12-step calls. I must have averaged 2 a day for the first 18 months or so. Got sober on it. And the first reaction is, what do I know? I don't know when I can't. What am I? I have no idea what I know. And I used to be plagued with this. I used to periodically sit down and try and figure out what I know. I'd sit down and... Jesus Christ, I don't know shit! But I'm sober a month, 2 months, whatever, some newcomer, so how do you... I don't know until I reach down and share my experience. Well, how did I do it? Well, I don't know, man, I guess I didn't drink. Yeah, I didn't. Then I hear myself. I hear my own experience making that circuit, making this circuit. Then it starts to become my reality. And I start to break through the false image of my own inadequacy. And it goes on and on and on. I also know from my experience in prayer that I don't pray to God. First of all, I don't pray to anything out there. There's nothing there. I pray from God to God. The book tells me the only place I'll find the great reality, which is, as far as I'm concerned, synonymous with God, life, love, is deep within myself. So I pray from God to God. And again, I have that same circle, the circle of life, same thing, over and over. I pray from God to God. And I believe the prayer. Now, let me say this. I don't know anything about prayer. I'm not a schooled person. I don't know all those things, how they categorize and catalog things like prayer. All I know is my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's all I know. But I believe that the prayer that mends the broken hearts and heals the sick minds that we bring here is the song of love we sing to this thing called God. And I don't limit prayer to a pious attitude on my knees, which is usually a crock. But I'll do it anyway. Most of the time, what we call prayer for me is talking into a dead phone. Not even an answering machine at the other end. However, you ever walk into a room and see somebody that you saw at their first meeting, They're still coming back. They're on their hind legs. They smell pretty good. And there's a little flicker of light in their eye. And you feel, I mean, there is nothing can make you feel better. I don't care who gave you how much money, nothing can make you feel better. You are so happy at somebody else's success, and they're sober, and then they say they want to be sober. Your heart sings. That's the prayer of love. That's the song of love. And I believe that song is heard in every heart throughout the world and is heard throughout the entire universe. And I believe, I know, that with the 11th step, we can not only sit and hear that song, but experience in all of our being the simple truth that in all of the universe there is only one song, and we are the song. No one note any more important or less important than the other. There's nothing special. No one's special. We are the song. This process we have here in A is so fantastic. We get here so insulated and isolated in that cold, cavernous, dark, cancerous hole of I, the loneliness that no one knows more than a drunk. And we get here, and the very first word of this program is we, isn't it? We admitted we. And gradually, as we keep coming back, the I more and more gets integrated into the we. And then as we continue, we end up with the one. That same circle, cycle of life. It's an incredible thing. And then with the 9th step, I was given a gift of love. I had been given up for dead many times, and the only thing that kept me alive was my hatred for God. I was determined that if I died, I was going to die giving God the finger. If there was such a thing called God, I couldn't wait to meet the son of a bitch, spit in its face, and tell it what I thought of it. I've been told that's an attitude. And I'll tell you something. You know how I got free of the God of my fathers, which I believe is nothing more than the anthropomorphic creation of the ego? I spent years calling God every goddamn rotten motherfucking weasel I could think of. And I used to scream, Jesus, you skinny Jew bastard, if you were here, I'd hammer the nails in myself. That was my process of freeing myself from an old idea. And after a while I'd do it, and I'd be laughing like hell inside. Because I knew I didn't mean that. I mean, whatever this power is, that's not what. But I had to get free of this old idea. Judgments, rewards, punishments. That's right and wrong. Who needs it? Just had to get free of it. And then I noticed something. That even as I'm screaming, I have this sense of not laughter, but joy and indomitable strength. And eventually I came to realize that no matter what I say to this thing, it cannot, it's not that it will not, it cannot abandon me. You can't separate creation from creator. This thing that created me extended itself, and there I am. It can't get away from me. And it has no choice. It's hooked. And I finally experienced, now I don't even bother cursing it anymore. I just say, I love you, man. What are you going to do? So anyway, with the 9th step, I was given a gift of love. Fell in love with this thing called God. And I understood in time what happened by reading AA Comes of Age. In the back of the book, they call an old Spanish philosopher, and the line that cleared it for me is, those who deny God deny him because of their despair at not finding him. So I understood this hostile attitude. This thing I so desperately wanted to find, this thing that I so desperately believed I could never have, turns out to be the only thing I can never be without. Yeah, life's joke. Life's joke, Cubby's perception. Life's a joke and we're the punchline, man. And when I remember that, I boogie. But when I forget that, then I also forget that life's a mystery that can't be solved. And I'm going to solve the mystery. And hold on. Just don't be walking on the street when I'm driving. When I try and solve the mystery of life. I experience life. And then I reflect on the experience, come to some understanding, but I don't solve the mystery. And it's the mystery that's fun. Suppose I go to bed knowing exactly what's going to happen tomorrow. Oh, my God. I don't know. I don't care. The way is easy for the man with no preference. I don't care if I live, I die. I don't care if I'm with this woman, that one, if I'm with nobody. I don't care if I finish this book. I have no preference. I just don't care. It's just, yeah? 'Cause none of that stuff exists. It's just, oh. And so with the ninth step, I had this gift of love. And an ancient axiom says, the holiest ground in the world is when ancient hatred has been turned into a current love. So because of what happened for me in AA, wherever I am, I'm standing on the holiest ground in the world. And I believe it's impossible to take the first 9 steps without standing on the holiest ground in the world. Because in the course of that step, you're going to have to make amends to somebody you hate with a vengeance. Because they just screwed you over. And you're going to make amends to them. And you're going to find within yourself resources that you never knew existed. You're going to start uncovering and discovering the great reality. Love. That's what you're going to find. And with the 12th step, we have the spiritual awakening. Now, for me, this thing that I'm awakened to is not somebody else's concept of God. And it's not some institution's concept of God. And it certainly isn't my concept of God. You heard my concept. You're going to stay sober for 24 years with that concept? But it's a power of infinite and unconditional love that revealed itself to me from within me as a direct result of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Love, life, reality, the same thing. The last chapter of our book is called A Vision for You. Everyone has that vision within themselves, as well as a dream in their heart. But there's a vision that goes beyond the physical world, but can't be experienced here. However, I cannot experience that vision as long as I hold on to the image I have of me. Now, I was about 12 years old, about 15 years ago. I was down on the 69th Street Pier in Brooklyn, a bunch of us kids, and some big guys came, 16 years old. And this kid, I don't know who he was, I never saw him, but he said, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. Which is not an unusual thing to hear. But to this day, I remember clearly my response. I said to him, you can't because there's too much shit in me. That's not a positive self-image for a 12. So I have to uncover the old ideas, the lies, discard them so I can discover the truth. In other words, get rid of the image to experience the vision. Now, 5 years ago, I was involved in making a film. It was a European production company. We're back in Brooklyn shooting a film. And the producer brought the international bankers over from Europe. He introduced them to me, and they bowed, and they said, Mr. Selby, this is a great honor. AA had nothing to do with that. But this is what AA had to do with. I didn't have to scratch my crotch, pick my nose, and wipe my finger off on his shirt. You see? I didn't have to prove that I'm that image. I smiled and I said, thank you very much. You're very kind to say that. See, because I knew what was talking to what. So all I have to do is get out of the way, and that power, reality, talks to this power. I get out of the way, and they communicate. And it becomes very simple. Everybody's happy. And we go our way, and we do our job. I had a very tough time with my mother. My father was a hopeless drunk, finally died drunk at the age of 78. And my mother was the one that had to enforce the discipline and whack me around and all that stuff. And actually what it boiled down to, she and I were fighting for control all my life. And I used to torture that woman. Finally, she got to the point where she wouldn't react to these things I said and did. I mean, I would have the police department over the house at 4 in the morning. It was just horrendous. And she's always worried because I was always dying. And I'm an only child, and she's going nuts. But I was a little resentful. I was so filled with rage at what happened. See, when I was 15, I was 6 feet tall, 175 pounds. I was a dynamite football player, and I loved the game. I'm now up to 120. And I just couldn't find a way to accept what had happened to me. This mutilation. So she learned how to accept a lot of this stuff. But there was one thing she could never accept without going, it just had to react. See, my mother is a very simple kind of person. She believes that God is love and you go out and help people. She puts her money where her mouth is. She's been singing in the same choir for 57 years. But she'd be down in the kitchen in the morning, a nice sunny bright day. And I just kind of pussyfoot up behind her and say, God eats shit. And she'd get rich. Mary sucks Jesus. And that woman, and I know now what went through that poor woman's mind. She must have spent years asking herself, what did I do to this child? She must have been loaded with guilt. So, she couldn't believe it. I mean, who could believe that anybody could be that vicious? I mean, it didn't happen accidentally or it was calculated. So I got sober and I made amends to her, and our relationship has so improved. But really isn't saying much to say it improved. But I'll tell you how much. We just get along beautifully, but I was 10 years sober. I was back in Brooklyn. I was visiting her, and I just couldn't stand to be in the same house with her. I felt suffocated, and like I was being strangled, and she wants to make it better, and I want her to get out of my face. But she visited me last September. I have a one-bedroom apartment. It's not large. And she's very limited physically, so we spent 11 days mostly sitting in my apartment, playing two-handed pinochle, talking, and laughing. I can't tell you how comfortable I felt. I knew it would be a good visit, but I had no idea how comfortable I would be. Just incredible. And one day I was sitting there, and I was looking at her, and I suddenly saw the child, that little girl. It was absolutely divine. The little girl that had to take care of her brother and sister, and when her father was sick and her mother was out selling aprons and eggs door to door, the one that had to take control of everything. And there was that little girl. We had a marvelous time. We had great talks and discussions. And my father, I had a problem with him. I adored him. I worshipped him. And I was, as I said, I was in bed 3 years. Altogether, I guess I spent 3.5 years in a hospital. And in all those years I was in bed. And you see, with these operations, you don't just get one. They only cut out 3 ribs at a time. So every 3 weeks you make that ride on the gurney and get another 3 ribs. It was kind of brutal and a real drag. And my father visited me once or twice. And I couldn't say to myself, you know, Cubby, you're really broken-hearted that your father won't come and visit you in the hospital. I just couldn't say that. Because I'm dealing with a belief system of lies, and it all gets distorted. And my disease will use anything and everything against me. And I just habitually covered everything with rage. So then I got sober, and when I was 6 months sober, I made amends to my father. And again, this is after the fact. Always after the fact we understand things. I never got drunk sitting on my ass thinking about booze. I had to take the action to get the effect. After I made amends to him, I suddenly realized, because 6 months is not a long time, but it's long enough to understand something about the nature of the illness, and that guilt is an inherent operative part of alcoholism. So I knew this guy was a drunk, so I knew he was overwhelmed with guilt. That in his heart of hearts, in that deep, dark, black corner of our soul where it's always 3 o'clock in the morning, he knew he was responsible for his 18-year-old son, his only child, dying. He knew he was a murderer. How could he come up and watch me die? It's impossible. No one can be that inhuman. He couldn't come up and watch me die. And then the whole thing made such sense. Now, I talk with my mother every week, and occasionally my father would be sober enough to speak, maybe once a month, every 6 weeks. And we talk a couple of minutes, and he'd go. And then one day when I was sober, maybe 10 years or so.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
And I was 50 years old. I never remember my father saying to me, "I love you." And on this particular day, I was 50 years old, 10 years sober, and I said, "I love you, Pop." And he said, "I love you too, son." I had never said that. I said, "God bless you, Pop." He said, "Thank you, son. I need that. God bless you too." And again, in retrospect, I realized that this tortured man battled with that same misconception of God, the same demons that I've battled with all my life, trying to make some sense not only out of this mystery, but himself and his behavior and the raging, maniacal, bloody things he did night after night. He couldn't understand it any more than I could understand what he did to me and what I did to me and what I did to them. He couldn't see it. The disease blinds us. Then 13 years ago, almost to this day, he died. And we never had any communication, he and I. But after he died, we had the greatest communication we've ever had. For the 2 days following, it was fantastic. 'Cause, you know, when you're not dealing with a body in a three-dimensional language, the awareness is instant. It just happens, whether you're talking to your dead father or hocus pocus. And then through these years, wonderful things have happened. Because I had to deal with this as part of getting rid of my old ideas. Understanding the memories. See, I believe energy is life. Life is, I believe, there's always a vibration, whatever you call it. Energy is always in motion. And it doesn't disappear or dissipate. It transforms, perhaps, one thing to another. And all this horror I could not accept was still alive in me in energy. And I had to get free of that. And I've spent the last 15 months or so dealing with this on a conscious level. And it's been a horrendous experience, but it wasn't frightening because there's no fear left in my life because there's no guilt left in my life. And I knew what was happening with the process. So I had to deal with this, and a lot of it deal with my father. So one day he came back and he's talking to me, and he said, "I now know I loved you," meaning my mother and myself. Now, of course, he couldn't believe that he loved us because of his behavior. He couldn't. Well, just check your own experience. How many times have we heard it? If you really loved her, why do you treat her like that? Jesus Christ, I wish I knew. Yeah? The man couldn't believe that he loved. Now he knew. See, I didn't realize it at the time, but what it meant was he was sober. Next time we talked, or I'm just some of the highlights. He said, I now know I never have to drink again. And one of the things I had to do with the 10th step and 11th step, this is all the steps. I went back to my birth. I went back as a man to my birth. And I asked my father to come join me. And he came over, and I took me out of the crib, or whatever you call the thing there. I took this infant me out, and I gave all of me, my life. I entrusted it to my father. Boom. And you have never seen anybody light up the way he just glowed. And he held me, and he did then what I know in his heart he always wanted to do, but the disease wouldn't allow him to do. He couldn't fight through it. But we were able to do this after he died. Oh, my God. The last time we talked, maybe 8 months ago, he made amends to me. He's on the Nite step. He made amends to me. And what he said in effect was that as I continue to practice the principles here, I'm in a sense acting like his sponsor there. I don't understand how, the nature of how it's worked out there. But I'm in a sense sponsoring him there. Because you see, I know from my experience that there is no death. So if there's no death as we understand it, then there's no life as we understand it. We created a world of duality. I create left, instantly I create right, and so forth. So I've given all that up. There is only life, that great reality deep within me that the book talks about. But this thing that we made up, life and death, it doesn't exist. So I no longer want anything from life. Just give what I can. I no longer have fear, guilt, shame. Let me tell you one last experience, because I think this maybe helps. Last year, sometime, when I was meditating, I was overwhelmed, just overwhelmed. Just total ecstasy and bliss. And all of my being was life. And I rejoiced, just totally rejoiced over all the pain and misery I caused the people I love. I am even with the world. I've made amends. I'm even. Life owes me nothing. I owe life nothing. All I want to do is give everything I have to life. Because in that experience, I saw that this is all judgment. The greatest thing in forgiveness for me, when I forgive somebody for what I think they did to me, is I experienced that there was nothing to forgive in the first place. Judgment upon judgment. And that was the ultimate experience for that. So I have no fear, because if I'm not guilty, I can't have fear, right? Where does fear come from? Because I'm guilty. They're going to find I'm not guilty. That's just part of the inevitable result of practicing the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous. I know absolutely Alcoholics Anonymous is the greatest spiritual experiment in all the known history of the human race. There is absolutely no doubt about that. Alcoholics Anonymous is life. But I have to let go of the image to become the vision. I have to let that image go. And I do that by the application of these principles. I uncover the lie, I discard the lie, and I discover the truth. And more, I become that vision. This is something that will happen. It's just one of the results of the actions. It's not a reward, because there are no rewards and there are no punishments. But there's a result for every action. This is one of the results. And I know you all at some point in your time and from your experience will have the same experiences I've had. And as our book ends, may God bless you and keep you until then. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.